Mika is clearly a chocobo, disguised as a boy. A chocoboy, if you will. And this chocoboy is clearly designed as a physical support, except he's not actually great at being a physical support, especially at C0. However, Mika does boost more than physical damage, so let's talk about how he works, what he can do well, and what he can't. Hey everyone, Sharkart here, and in this video I'm going to break down how Mika's kit works because it may be a little bit confusing. We're going to go over his skill, his burst, his relevant passive talents, whether he's worth pulling, and if you get him, how you should build him. So let's first talk about Mika's most defining important trait, the fact that he looks like a human version of a chocobo, but also his elemental skill. Mika's elemental skill has very low talent scaling and therefore very low damage potential, but it also grants a buff called Soul Wind. Soul Wind is a 12-second attack speed buff to any on-field character, and by leveling Mika's talents, the attack speed buff will increase, giving you a 20% attack speed boost at talent level 8. This attack speed increase feels really good, but realistically you're getting an extra 1 or 2 attacks under this buff, so it's not the biggest increase in damage, especially considering characters like Fischl can provide more off-field damage and elemental application for your team than Mika does. Another thing to consider is that Mika does not increase the speed of charged attacks, just normal attacks. Mika's skill also generates a nice 4 cryo particles, but it has a 15-second cooldown, so you're really only using this once per rotation, which unfortunately means that if you wanted Mika to be a cryo battery for a character like Eula, you might be disappointed, as Diona with the sacrificial bow is much better at generating cryo energy for a character like Eula compared to Mika using a Favonius Lance. Now the other big part of Mika's kit centers around his first passive ability, which gives his elemental skill the capability to grant detector stacks. These detector stacks increase your character's physical damage by 10% per stack. If Mika's skill hits multiple enemies, it grants a detector stack for every enemy hit after the first one. This ability caps out at a total of 3 detector stacks, meaning you have to hit 4 enemies to get the maximum number of 3 total stacks, at least at C0. And the best way to get 3 stacks and get the maximum 30% physical damage bonus is by hitting 4 enemies using Mika's hold skill. His skill has a tap and hold version, and the hold version fires an initial shot and then shoots 3 additional homing arrows that will each grant you a detector stack when they hit an enemy. And unlike other elemental skills in the game, the hold version does not increase the cooldown of his elemental skill. Mika's skill cooldown is 15 seconds whether you press or hold it, so use the hold version to get more detector stacks if you want to increase your physical damage bonus. And now at this point, I think some of you savvy sharks will say, but if he grants detector stacks after the first enemy hit, does that mean that he can't grant any when you're fighting a single enemy like a big boss monster? And yes, but also no, because his second passive ability solves that problem. Kind of. This passive ability allows you to gain 1 detector stack when you use his skill, burst, and your on-field character scores a critical hit. And this is capped at 1 stack. It's not like you can gain multiple stacks by scoring multiple critical hits, which is honestly a lot of conditions to meet for a mere 10% more physical damage. So ideally, you want to use Mika when you're fighting exactly 4 enemies. Moving on to Mika's Elemental Burst, it's a pretty nice utility skill. It heals your whole team for about as much as Barber's Burst, while also allowing your active character to heal whenever they land a normal attack once every 2.5 seconds. This is fairly convenient as you get 1 big heal when you use your burst initially that heals your entire team, and then your on-field character can get up to 5 instances of healing whenever they use a normal attack. And it's nice that the healing utility from Mika's burst is pretty good because it doesn't apply any cryo or deal any damage. Another thing I wanted to mention is Mika's 6th Constellation. It allows you to get 1 more detector stack, meaning you can get a 20 physical damage boost in single target or a maximum of 40% physical damage boost in AoE. It also increases the physical crit damage of characters under his attack speed buff by 60%. This is a nice constellation, boosting your physical damage by 10% and giving you 60% more physical crit damage, and it might seem like it's worth it, However, it takes about 250 wishes on average to get a C6 4-star rate up character. Just to put that into perspective, you have way more likelihood of getting 2 limited 5 stars than you do to get 1 C6 rate up 4-star character. Now that we know what Mika can do and what he can't do, let's answer the questions: is he worth pulling, and if you get him, is he worth building? I honestly think Mika is a fun character, but he is not a character that you should pull for or build if you're trying to maximize your damage. The attack speed increase and healing are both nice, but honestly physical teams are not in a great spot right now, and Mika is not enough to save them. I was hoping the attack speed buff and healing utility would make Mika a nice alternative to Diona or Layla as a cryo support, but his skill cooldown is a bit too long if you want to use him as a cryo battery, and the lack of off-field damage or cryo application can hurt your team as well. However, if you do want to build him to have fun in domains, in the overworld, or in co-op, I suggest running a Favonius Lance on him with a 4-piece Noblesse Oblige set. This way he can give your team a little bit of an attack boost when he uses his elemental burst, and he's also helping recharge some of your team's energy with the Favonius Lance. For his stats, I'd focus on energy recharge and HP percent, as his personal damage isn't very good, and if you don't have a Favonius Lance, you can use the black tassels for more HP percent. To me, Mika feels like Farzan with a little more evenly distributed power balance. His base kit at C0 is nice, and his C6 is pretty good, and he's also not as niche as Farzan, who has major problems at C0 and has a C6 that solves all of her problems while also being a huge buff to you and your team. So I like that he's not a super niche support, because even non-physical DPS characters can benefit from his attack speed buff and his heals, and they also appreciate that his utility isn't totally gated behind constellations. Honestly, the most disappointing thing about Mika for me is that he boosts physical damage, which Hoyo doesn't really seem to care about. He is a pretty fun character and might be a nice comfy pick for some people, but he's a low priority to pull and build, especially with better options available. And if you're curious about what the best characters to pull for and build are, I'll have that video on screen now. Have a wonderful day, everyone. I love you, stay jawsome, may order guide you, friends, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.